Let's talk about January 6th. What happened on January 6th?
Well, yeah, it's a long sort of buildup where Donald Trump was working with most of his former staff, including Mike Pence and all the others, to try to get a sort of slate of fake electors to then go up to the Capitol, get a large group of Trump supporters to be really, really riled up. Hopefully they delay the certification of the vote enough so that Mike Pence can break the ECA, and therefore Donald Trump wins by getting these fake electors through that sort of meeting.
Okay, so without any further ado, let's get on to the video and check it out.
Yes. Okay. So then...
So tell us why. Why? Give us 3 examples how Donald Trump has undermined American values.
Absolutely. So the first, I'll say the lightest example, is going to be rhetoric on Twitter. He said openly on Twitter that we should suspend the Constitution. I feel as though that's fairly anti-American. The next much larger point is going to be January 6th. I think the whole January 6th thing overall is a major, major problem for Trump as an American in general. And the last sort of thing is his general sort of demeanor. He treats Americans who disagree with him as people to not really support, as people not to really help out or anything like that. If you're against Trump, it's the highway of the other. I don't remember the phrase, but you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
You're trying to say my way or the highway. All right.
Yeah.
And fair enough. I appreciate the respectful manner in which you asked that question. So here's the thing. If you care about defensive democracy, here's what democracy is about to me.
Okay.
Is do you get to do what we just did, where you get to express yourself and your opinion freely, as long as I do or Charlie do or what's your name?
Zahra.
Or Zahra does in return. That's American democracy. That's the whole ball game. If we lose that, we don't have a country.
Okay.
So here's what's happened under 4 years of Joe Biden. Okay, we have seen the censorship of Donald Trump at the instruction of government agencies. We've seen a lot of people in this country who have been held without going through due process for expressing themselves in the open. We've seen social media companies on the eve of the last election. There was the Hunter Biden laptop story. A lot of people said that if they had seen that story, they would have voted differently. If you wanted to send that on a direct message on Twitter or on Facebook, they suppressed you from doing it. That's not democracy. That's the stuff of banana republics. That's the stuff of third world nations. And so my view is you don't have to agree with 100% of what Donald Trump says to vote for him, and you don't have to agree with 100% of what Kamala Harris says to vote for her too. I'll apply the same standard. But what we want in this country is the basic rules of the road where if you have an opinion, you get to express it without the government censoring you along the way. So when you think about what's anti-American, there's nothing more anti-American than censorship. And if you look at which person was more responsible for censorship, was it Biden-Harris or was it the Donald Trump administration? It's not even close. And that's why I'd encourage you to change your mind.
I do want to ask, though, you say you're supporting Kamala Harris. Can you, either of you, tell me what you think her greatest accomplishment is?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a few... Oh, yeah. Do you want to go first or do you want me?
Wait, before we answer that question, I guess I feel like our question wasn't sufficiently responded to or answered. It feels as though you guys pivoted.
What is the question?
The question is, why do you think that...
Okay, so you said he wanted to suspend the Constitution. Did he
threatened to
do
repeal
that
the
when he was president?
No, he did not. But
Okay, so then why would he do it again when he was president again? So what evidence do you have that Donald Trump would ever suspend the Constitution?
Do you think that it is legitimate to be concerned about as an American citizen for a potential presidential candidate, a former U.S. president, to threaten to suspend the U.S. Constitution?
He never has. You're misquoting him, but let's just look at what he did, not just rhetoric. Can you give me one instance where he suspended the Constitution when he was president?
I mean, he wanted to suspend... I don't know if you want to count it as the Constitution, but again, January 6th.
All right, let's talk about January 6th. What happened on January 6th?
Well, yeah, it's a long sort of buildup where Donald Trump was working with most of his former staff, including Mike Pence and all the others, to try to get a sort of slate of fake electors to then go up to the Capitol, get a large group of Trump supporters to be really, really riled up. Hopefully they delay the certification of the vote enough so that Mike Pence can break the ECA, and therefore Donald Trump wins by getting these fake electors through that sort of meeting.
Yeah, or what happened, there was a big rally, and he said to peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol, which you believe in, right, to be able to have freedom of speech.
I mean, yeah.
And the only person to die on January 6th was a Trump supporter killed by one of Nancy Pelosi's bodyguards. So I just want to be clear.
Because she was breaking into the Capitol.
So you should Ashley Babbitt should be killed? Wow, okay, that's a new one.
Well, she was...
I just want to be clear. We're not
Charlie,
defending...
do you not believe in stand your ground? Do you not believe that someone was intruding on property of which they should not have been intruding?
Well, hold on, but Ashley Babbitt was unarmed. Isn't the whole kind of shtick of the American left, like, don't shoot unarmed people?
If I break into your house and I was unarmed, but I was breaking into your house...
Was George Floyd, was that a rightful death?
No, but probably wasn't breaking into the cop's house. That's
Well,
probably not.
he was
He was submitted. He was submitted by.
Well, so
various-
was Ashley Abbott, actually.
No, I don't.
Ashley Babbitt was retreating at the time that she was shot in the head. Anyway, that's
What
besides
do you
the
think
point.
about the fake elector scheme, and what do you think
So
about Trump trying
they
to
were
pressure
alternate
Roethlisberger
electors, which
and
again,
other-
alternate electors is a tradition that goes all the way back to the 1960 election with JFK versus Nixon, of which was not considered a threat to democracy.
Okay.
But I'm interested, though. You guys are super, focused on technical things that we could talk about forever. Let me just ask a question. I asked you, what is Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment? Can you tell me what that would be?
Okay, yeah, so just to go through it, just so it doesn't seem like we're dodging, there's a couple different things. She's by far the most active vice president in U.S. history, I'm pretty sure. She's had the most, be mad.
Wait, what do you mean active? Like,
She's had the most tie-breaking votes in the Senate in U.S. history. I'm pretty sure this is true. Either that or, like, super close. Yeah. We'll be okay, guys. We'll be okay.
Let me just rephrase. What, just in your opinion, because I want to get this on the table. What is the single thing that she has done to improve the lives of Americans?
I mean, we could talk about her time as the DA. We could talk about her time
as California's Attorney General.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, what are the constitutionally prescribed roles of a vice president that she failed to
okay, yeah, I'm glad you asked. So she was in charge of two things. She was in charge of the Russian-Ukrainian war before it happened, and she was in charge of the border. She was
And the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Those three things. The border, we have 10 million illegal people that have come to this country under her watch. She gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference where Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine and all but invited Vladimir Putin's invasion. And then she was in charge of the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Are those three successful things that we can look to as Kamala Harris being VP?
Well, it's really funny because speaking on that 10 million immigrant point, I would be more mad at Kamala Harris if they didn't try to pass a border bill. If they didn't try to pass a border
I would be
bill.
more
Yeah,
mad
but we
at
don't
the
need
person-
new border laws as exhibited by Donald Trump, because under Donald Trump, we didn't have any new border laws and border crossings were at an all-time low. Instead, Joe Biden and Kamala
When?
Harris, when Donald Trump was president
What
from
time in-
2017 to 2021,
I think
when
there
he
was a
president.
specific period of time and it was an all-time low.
Yeah, it was an all-time low on an average over the 4 years of Trump being president. But the first thing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did is they rescinded 65 executive actions that Donald Trump put into place. For example, DNA testing. If I were to ask you how many kids right now are missing from the southern border, how many would you say?
I'm pretty sure y'all say something like 350,000.
Yeah,
or
so
something like that.
320,000 kids are missing, many of whom are being sex trafficked. Do you know why that is? Because Kamala Harris got rid of DNA testing on the southern border, where you no longer have to be swab DNA test. It takes 90 seconds to find out if a kid is related to the person that is bringing them across the border. So Kamala Harris has been responsible for the border, which is one of the greatest failings in modern American history. And so, yes, as a vice president, you are tasked with certain projects and certain things. Everything she has touched has been a miserable failure. If that is the case, why would she be a good president?
Okay, so a couple different things on that whole immigration point. One, again, it's weird to frame the border thing as like only an additional thing for new laws. Like we know for a fact there's going to be additional border agents. We know for a fact there's going to be additional funding.
Additional judges.
Additional judges.
So remain in
Security,
Mexico
Border
was
Patrol.
Trump's signature policy.
It was.
Okay, so it means you remain in Mexico as your case is adjudicated.
Yeah.
Right now, do you know if remain in Mexico is still the law of the land?
It's not. It is not.
Actually,
the law.
so that's just you have no reason. I'm not going to hold you responsible for this.
Okay.
Actually, it turns out remain in Mexico is the law of the land. A federal judge has held accordingly. They're just not enforcing it. So Donald Trump in the Republican position, I share this, is if you're not going to enforce the laws as they exist, there's no point in actually passing new laws. The first step we need to do is enforce the laws as they exist right now. And back to the broader point about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. I'm just going to give you some hard facts.
Okay.
Under Donald Trump, prices stayed flat, wages went up. Under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, prices have gone up, wages have remained flat. Under Donald Trump in 2019, we hit the all-time low for illegal entries into this country. Under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, the last 4 years, we've had the largest number of illegal entrants into this country over a 3-year time span in American history. Under Donald Trump, we were not in major conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, or the Middle East. Under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, we are closer to World War III than we've ever been in our lifetime. So if we just measure closeness to World War III, border crisis, economy, what makes your life better and the lives of the people here better, I believe it's not even close. When you think about it, you could have the debates about democracy all you want. I think censorship is the greatest threat to democracy, and we've seen greater form of censorship in the last 3 years than we've seen any other time in my lifetime. But on the issues of what's going to make the lives of the people here better, I think it's not even close, and that's why I'd encourage you to ask yourself, who's going to make your life better in the next 4 years? I think Donald Trump's the answer to that question.
Do you think that one thing that would have helped the massive rates of border crossings would have been the border bill, the bipartisan border legislation?
The answer is
bill that would
no.
have
The
increased?
answer is no to that because, first of all, most of those border crossings occurred before that border bill was even proposed. What would have helped was actually enforcing the laws as they exist, re-implement Remain in Mexico, complete the actual construction of the border wall, and then stop funding federal sanctuary cities where our own taxpayer money is creating the incentives for those illegal migrants to cross.
And
That didn't happen under
just-
Trump. It's
just-
happening under Biden and
I don't
Harris.
mean to interrupt, but super quick. The border bill would have said it was permissible to have 5,000 people crossing the border a day. It's correct. It's in the language of the bill.
It was saying 5,000 people. At the point at which 5,000
Yeah, so
people
if it's-
crossed, they would have shut down the border.
Right. So if it's 4,999, you don't shut down the border. That's pretty insane, right?
Oh, so, wait, but also very, very quickly.
How about this? You should shut down the border with one person crossing the southern border.
Also, what do you wait? Just to be very, very clear, when we say, wait, all right, buddy. When we say crossing, right, we understand that most of the immigration that's coming in right now is not just randomly borders crossing people. It's usually asylum seekers, right?
Well, no, it's actually cartel-smuggled, cartel-sponsored, fraudulent asylum claims. I encourage you to go down to the border and see it yourself. The cartel will take someone from any, what Pakistan, India, 135 countries. They'll quote-unquote claim asylum after they pay the cartel $10,000. 90% of all people that cross the border are pseudo-slaves by the cartels, basically.
So you think 9 million of the undocumented, like the immigrants that have come in, are all illegal?
No,
Is that what you're saying?
they're all illegal because we know it to be true. It's not the question. They're fraudulent. They're defrauding the American immigration system is what they're doing.
Wait, so you're saying that there is sufficient proof?
Please talk in the mic.
You're saying that there is sufficient proof that claims that the 9 million people who crossed the border, weren't, I guess, official asylum seekers?
Yes, I mean, so for example, what is the asylum claim if you're coming from Germany?
North Korea,
Yeah.
actually. So there's an interesting case. So I went down to the southern. I'll tell you two personal facts, all right? I went down to the southern border. The day before I got there, there was two men who came from Lebanon, crossed the southern border, smuggled across. They, in that case, caught the two of them. There was also a woman from North Korea in a bag that crossed the southern border. What's interesting about that is North Korea is a country from whom you can actually seek refugee status in the United States, yet she chose not to do it and cross illegally. Is that an illegal border crossing when you lie to a Border Patrol agent? When you do it, the answer is yes. And I think actually that number is way higher than 9 million over the course of the last 4 years. And the other thing I'll just sort of personally lay out for you, I don't have any financial interest in this, but I'm laying out because I did it this year because it is meaningful. There's a movie I actually helped make this year called City of Dreams. It tells the story of a young man who was smuggled across the border, true story, in L.A., in sweatshops. This is the kind of thing that the left used to be concerned about. A child who's separated from his parents, put into forced labor in the United States. That is a direct consequence of the cartel influence policies. And yes, I think there are probably upwards of at least somewhere between 10 and 30 million people in the United States of America right now illegally. And your first act of entering this country, if it breaks the law, that's unconstitutional, that's unlawful. And the number one thing that our immigration system rewards right now isn't how smart you are, isn't how hard you're going to work. It's whether you're willing to lie to the U.S. government. If you say under asylum laws, what it says is if I'm under threat of bodily harm right now for my race or my religion or factors like that, you have to have documented proof. So if you say, I don't have that proof and I'm not really under threat for bodily harm, I don't want to lie, you don't get in. But if you're willing to lie, you check that box on the CBP One app or otherwise, you get in. So right now, our immigration system literally selects for the people who are most willing to lie to the U.S. government to get in. And that's why it's no surprise that the people whose first act of entering the country breaks the law often continue to break the law while they're already here. I don't think that's racist or xenophobic. I think it's a fact based on who we're actually selecting to come into the country.
Do you think that allowing for thousands of more Border Patrol agents and more judges to properly assess and legitimize the validity of these asylum and otherwise claims would possibly reduce that number and help the
It would reduce that number if the ones who are already there were allowed to do their jobs. But right now, the ones who are there are actually not allowed to do their jobs because Remain in Mexico, though it's technically the law of the land, Homeland Security has been instructed not to enforce it. That's unlawful. And by the way, I would call that, back to our first discussion, I would call that a threat to our democracy. When we have democratically passed laws, but where the administrators of that law say we're not going to actually follow that law, that I actually consider to be the greatest threat to democracy of all.
And just the last point is that the people in this audience, which is a very diverse audience, specifically black Americans, should be incensed that they're being replaced by foreigners. And something that has always been kind of a mantra of the Democrat Party is that we have and I can resonate with this partially, is that we have an obligation to American citizens, specifically black Americans. And black Americans are now being put aside so that a bunch of foreigners can come undercut wages and fill your cities. In fact, we see this in Chicago, New York. So I don't expect you guys to like put on the MAGA hat right now, but I want to plant a seed for you guys that the black community, which you obviously both care a lot about, is actually not being prioritized. Instead, people from the third world are coming in and black America is getting put last, which seems to be a common theme over the last 60 years when Democrats are in control.
Well, okay. I guess final point.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That's a very interesting one, listening to these college students, of course, giving their opinion when it comes to President Donald J. Trump, of course, as they been alleged that President Donald J. Trump is anti-America. And then they ask them, what makes them think that President Donald J. Trump is anti-America? And then they mention January 6th, and then also his tweet for suspension of constitution. Was those technicalities, you understand, true? You know, my issue with some of these college kids, they always think that they knows it all. And then they told them that, okay, now, no problem. Why are you voting, you understand, for Kamala Harris? And they says that because she is the most active vice president. All right, okay, fine. If she's the most active vice president, what are her accomplishments? And then they couldn't mention, understand, her accomplishment. The only thing they always say is that she is the most active vice president. So when you are the most active vice president, what did you do? And then they were not able to like to tell us, even when she was attorney general. What did she do? They were not able to. But of course, we all know that she was in charge of the border, and then she was also in charge, understand, handling what was happening between Russia and Ukraine. Now, when we go, you understand, to the border, just like how Charlie Kirk, you understand, mentioned, we have over 320,000, you understand, children, you understand, missing. And during Donald J. Trump, all these things, you understand, was not happening. And why do you think, you understand, she cancelled the DNA testing to be sure that some of these kids actually from their parent? Of course, how did she handle, you understand, such situation, and why did she give executive orders, you understand, for all those things, you understand, to be removed? Now, this is a situation that we have now find ourselves on the issue of the border. Now, statistics shows that over 7 million people, you understand, have crossed, you understand, over to the border. But then the issue is because of when all these crossings, you understand, happen, so many things, you understand, tend to happen. And then that is why the cartels, you understand, are taking advantage of some of these things, and then therefore abusing the asylum, you understand, program for the seekers. And that's why I've always maintained, you understand, in my videos that the asylum program should be suspended pending to when, you understand, the United States, you understand, is now safe. And then once everything, you understand, is safe, that's when you can now bring in, you understand, people, you understand, to the country. But nevertheless, we all have, you understand, an opportunity to change the narrative, and that is through this very election. So the only thing that you can actually do is for you to go and vote. Vote and decide, you understand, for the future. Decide, you understand, for the future of America. If you feel President Donald J. Trump is the right person or is Kamala Harris, is up to you. But then when you look at, you understand, from some of the two things she has handled, you could bear with me that she totally failed woefully, and she do not deserve, you understand, the #1 or the most important job in the United States. I know that a lot of you have thought an opinion concerning this, and I want you to drop it at the comment section, and may God bless you as you do so. So this is the end of my video. If you like my reaction, should like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section, and I'm going to check it out. So you remain blessed, and I see you in my next video. Goodbye.